Hello and welcome along to the Jump Show / Let's Talk Racing handicap video. Unfortunately, Tom Bull is not here. He's been a favourite of the Jump Show channel all season. People have loved listening to him put up every English horse that's running at the Cheltenham Festival. When it matters most, he doesn't turn up. I think that says it all. But I'm Joshua Stacey. This is Andrew Blair White. We host the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel, and we're joined by the Jump Show's finest, Jake Price and Dan Overall. Chaps, how are we? Looking forward to it. It's just around the corner now. Come on.
No, sorry. Literally, the entire thing as you were talking, it just completely cut out, and I was like, oh, we're off to a flying start here. So God knows. Also, I appreciate the rock music into jazz music intro. That was a smooth transition. No, I thought that was top notch from us. Bully Indisposed. He has asked us to put up one of his handicappers, so we may well mention.
Let's just do the people a favour and not do that, shall we?
An adverse reaction to that selection. Yeah, but we're here. And we'll try our best in his absence.
Over the next, 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to be talking about every single handicap out at the Cheltenham Festival. We've done this the last 2 or 3 years.
We have, yeah. It's nice that Dan's turned up this year, not pissed like he did a few years ago.
Oh, don't you worry. There's still time.
I'm expecting 7 toilet breaks in this 45 minutes.
The line is 6.5.
Niche knowledge for those who watched last year's or the year before. But Dan, I think he broke a record for how many times someone could visit a toilet in an hour. It was remarkably impressive. But you may have seen what we've done. You may not have seen what me and Andrew do. But the one thing you have seen is the Jump Show this season. And I often think that the YouTube, especially independent YouTube channels, there aren't too many. And I think that the quality is very, very high. I think the Jump Show this season, I'm not just saying this, lads, I think it's been unbelievably good. You've pushed the boundary, especially with knowledge, with stats and everything. And I know I sound like I'm sucking up to you, but all the people that are watching us now will completely agree. And you've hit a good subscriber milestone, but we want to hit a massive target on this video, and they've put 300 on the brief. We're not doing 300. We're going to try and hit 400 likes on this video. If you can do that, that'd be wonderfully good. If you've seen us before and not the Jump Show, do go and subscribe to the channel. You will not regret it. It might take 6 months for us all to come back after a summer break for you to really feel the full value of that. But I promise you, heading into the 2026 Cheltenham Festival, you will be over the moon that you've subscribed. And we also, Jake, do you want to introduce the giveaway? Because it's a pretty nice giveaway.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit late in the day, but I do have right here 2 club enclosure badges for Tuesday. So these are courtesy of Unibet. So they're to give away to anybody in the chat that fancies them. All you have to do to enter is just put in the chat, where is Tom Bull? Put that keyword in the chat and you'll be entered into the draw.
And there's a bonus. If you put where is Tom Bull, he will have no winners this year from the Ante-Post. Your votes count for 3 in the giveaway. But
it was also funny that a few weeks ago we had this big kind of fighting talk going up against the comments that you were putting on the videos, and then suddenly when it's time to spar away, sick note Bull's back at it again.
I know, yeah.
Usually I get dragged in when it's sick note Bull, and I have to give out to Dan about be aware and stuff like that. We'll get onto that later.
We'll do that later.
Lots of comments coming in. We want this show to be as interactive as possible. And thank you all for tuning in. Scott, Ollie, Dominic, Josh, Aaron, Rogan, James, Anthony, Jason, thank you all for tuning in live. And for those that are tuning in after, thank you very much for watching this video. Do go and subscribe to the Jump Show. But before we move on, I just want to get your lads' general feels about how we're going into the Cheltenham Festival. Are you feeling confident, Dan, overall?
No. To be honest, no. I think we look at the Tuesday and it looks very difficult. No, I'm brutally honest. If it needs to be so, I think the Tuesday is going to be very tough. I think the National Hunt Chase is actually going to be very interesting. It might be the most interesting punting race of the day. But of course, you've got A lot of the short price favourites on the Tuesday. Then you go into the Wednesday. If you haven't had a good day by the Wednesday, as we know, it's kind of curtains going into a Thursday with 5 handicaps. So confidence is middling. But I think I also thought this was going into the first day of the Dublin Race Festival when we didn't back a loser. So, sometimes having that attitude can be good.
Have you found your Ultima horse? Don't say it, but have you found it?
Maybe. Maybe. Potentially.
Can we get some honest thoughts on your feelings behind the campaigning and general plotting of Philip Hobbs and his legion of good horses?
1 second, let me just have one of a sip of this before I...
So many people in the comments saying, "Where is Tom Bull?" We need to screenshot these and just say everyone's desperately disappointed he's not turned up, and everyone's
really care about your whereabouts.
But the real reason why they're commenting is because they want to win 2 tickets for Cheltenham. Sorry, Tom. This is the reason why you should turn up for these things and you won't get a drilling. I mean, just like all of his horses that are running at Cheltenham, none of them have turned up. So there's a reason.
It's so rich coming from us.
I know. Before we move on to the first handicap as well, a Baggy Chief says it. He says, "Well done on the odds checker gig, Jake. You're now writing for them weekly."
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a weekly Saturday column for them, and I will be doing every day of the Cheltenham Festival next week as well. So yeah, very excited. Glad to get the opportunity. It means a lot.
And superb from Dan yet again at Wincanton yesterday with reverse forecast galore. That being said, I asked for 1 bet and I think it's still running around. So,
she ran an admirably keen race in 4th. I had 3 bets on the day. I gave you her, and then the reverse forecast I conveniently left out in the text.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Dan looks after the people that don't look after him, and the one man who looks after him, he does not look after.
Right,
Crimea River.
Forget about this chat. No one was watching Wincanton yesterday, but everyone's going to be watching Cheltenham on Tuesday. The first handicap we're going to talk about is the Ultima. I'm going to start with you, Dan, because you've got a rich history of picking one out 2 months in advance and it doesn't end up running, or it ends up running at a good shorter price and you really fancy it going into it. So sometimes it doesn't always work, but sometimes trends change, and this could be the year.
Yeah, Phil Hobbs broke my heart this year. But let's move on from Lowry's Bar. He is now completely bollocksed. I've come round to an old favourite instead, to be honest. I've come back round to Broadway Boy after almost abandoning him for a bit of this season, thinking, he had a lot of issues towards the back end of last season. Was he the same horse? I thought he had a hard race at Cheltenham before he went to the Newbury Gold Cup, and they were kind of saying, it was a great prep one, even though he got into a fierce battle for about an hour up the straight with Does He Know. Then he ran poorly at Cheltenham again. But I just feel he is still handicapped to win a race like this. When you go back to the race he won in December last season, he won that pretty well. The form of that got Frank no end. He's a front runner. He's been trained for the race. They seemingly kept him more fresh than they did this time last year. I just can't have the others at the head of the market. None of them inspire me. The other one I backed at a bigger price was Melina Girl. The Irish don't win this race, I know. But I thought you go back to that December race when she was off 146. She was tanking round. She's dropped to a mark 142, been lightly campaigned this season, course form. I think the Irish could win it this year. I don't think the British contingent is that strong. So those would be the two. But yeah, it's Larry's Bar would have won it, but here we are.
When was the last time that the Irish won the race?
7, 6, not?
Yeah,
Done
many a moon ago.
That's knowledge for you.
Dan is hoping to break a 19-year-long curse with Melina Girl. I wish him all the best of luck. Jake, some sense, please. A British winner, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 on my short list. One of them is Broadway Boy, just because I feel he does have that one more race in him. The reason is, I remember talking to Dan about this in November when he was going for the Coral Trophy or the Ladbrokes Trophy, whatever it's called these days. And I remember saying to him, look, I've come round to Broadway Boy, and he couldn't have put me off more. He couldn't have tried to put me off more, saying about how over-raced he is, his bad campaigning, all of these issues that he's had. Dan knows every single fibre of Broadway Boy's body, I think. But Yeah, I've come round to the fact
He's only a girl.
Every
Don't
fibre.
worry.
but I've come round to the fact that I do think he's got a really good chance here. I think that he does have that one more pot in him. Okay, he ran pretty poorly on New Year's Day, but he's been given a nice break to freshen up since then. So I do think he's got a good chance. The other one is Henry's friend from the same race. Obviously, the Coral Ladbrokes Trophy, whatever we're calling it these days, that does have a good record of producing ultimate winners. He was fifth that day. Then he's also gone and won since, which I liked as well. So, okay, he's up in the handicap now. He's not going to be as well off at the weights with Broadway Boy as he was before, but I do think that he is the other horse in the race I'd give a chance to. And I will just give a really quick mention to Search for Glory as well. Like, I think he probably wants softer ground. Obviously, he's Irish trained. There's two negatives that you've got straight away. But I do think that he's off 147. I do think one day he's going to have a big handicap in him. Perhaps, maybe not this season. Maybe it'll be in the autumn. But yeah, he's a horse to keep on side, I think.
Also, just one random stat quickly, because I know a lot of people like Catate Dory. I think the last horse to run at Kempton in February before running at Cheltenham and winning was Flying Tiger in 2017. Traditionally, not many horses go on from that meeting onto Cheltenham success. So just a bit of caution about Catate Dory.
And so many people get sucked in on the Dovecote and the Adonis that day. They never turn out very well. And we know that Solo went and won the Adonis by half the track. Everyone loved him for a Triumph Hurdle. But that meeting doesn't produce Cheltenham Festival winners. You're completely right. Looking through the comments here, Only Fools Love Horses, a good podcast. They fancy Broadway Boy. Baggy Chief likes Henry Friend and King Turgeon. Liam Slaney likes Broadway Boy or The Changing Man. Dominic Hole likes The Changing Man. The Changing Man hoses up in the ultimate with Dominic. Trelawn Will Place. Matthew, thoughts on the Seed Question?
Would he run here? I'm not so sure. He's got plenty of entries.
He dropped out of one today, but I can't remember which ones he's left in now.
Yeah, I thought he might go for the Kim Muir, but then again, I know with the Gilligans they'll want the young lad to ride it.
He's only got the Ultima left actually, so there you go. He's going to the Ultima.
Well, Jack Gilligan will send him for home a mile out, and we'll see where we get from there. I think he's a well-handicapped horse, but I'd be unconvinced by his Cheltenham record.
Ben Knight says Henry Friend. He's backed him at 20s, 18s, 12s, and 10s. The mortgage isn't getting paid if he doesn't win. Ben, I really hope that your partner, or if you don't have a partner, A1, you'll have a great time. You punt away, but if you do have a partner, that sort of way of betting isn't going to work very, very long in the long term. Dave Elmer says Henry's Friend. Henry's Friend. Lots of people love Henry's Friend. Gary Dorman loves Henry's Friend at 20s and 18s. A few in there for Famous Bridge. A couple in there again for King Turgeon, The Short Go, Masaccio, Krabilli.
Hopefully not named.
Yeah.
There's a couple in there saying "Stay away, Faye."
Bloody hell!
Is that not a bit of a leap? No.
And people accuse me of coming onto these streams too drunk. Come on.
Yeah. It is 9 p.m.
yeah, while sipping a.
Who do you fancy in this one, mate?
A tough race to get to the bottom of. Not a race that I tend to do very well in as well.
That's normally because a British horse wins it, right?
Yeah, and I always back an Irish horse in. I was humming and hawing with Trelawn. I'm unconvinced whether he doesn't stay or whether just the last two times the race hasn't necessarily been run to suit. Parcels of his form would indicate that he should still have a very decent chance. He was obviously very well back for this race last year when falling at the second. His form this year has been relatively rock solid. He's not a horse that I feel has got 10 pounds in hand, but it's not often won by a horse that's got 10 pounds in hand. And the fact, I don't feel any injustice putting up Trelawn when the two lads are putting up Broadway Boy, who's been cropped for a year and a half.
No,
he was second at Newbury.
Second in the Coral Gold Cup.
He ran at January like a horse on New Year's Day. He had as much appetite for jumping fences on New Year's Day as I would have done post a Pop World 6 a.m. trip.
Yeah, fair enough.
Whereas you normally have a great aptitude for jumping fences.
Dave says he wouldn't take 100 to 1 and Stay away, Faye. There's a few interesting comments there. Tom Regan thinks that we all might lose our jobs. He says you shouldn't have done this on a Friday night at 9 p.m. that might be very good advice and something we take into account going forward. But this festival, you've got the jump show and Let's Talk Racing unfiltered. And I hope you do enjoy the next 40 minutes or so. It could be quite a ride. The following handicap is the 2-mile juvenile handicap hurdle, normally known as the Fred Winter or the Boodles. Is now called the, I'm not even going to try it. But no. The favourite for the race is Stencil, coming over from France. Dan, I want to get your thoughts on Stencil because he's still at the top of the market. I thought he was going to drift at some point, but he hasn't. And is it a case of people thinking that East India Doc's going to win the Triumph and therefore should just go and win the Fred Winter?
Partly that, and partly that any Noel George horse, I think for the last year and a half, has been a stone-cold certainty to win every single big race he's sent one over for. Stencil seemingly no exception to that. Oh, look, he's second to East India Doc, clear of a bunch of other Fred Winter contenders. I think a lot of the Irish aren't very well handicapped. A lot of those who've been running in graded races have quite extraordinarily high marks, I think, like Willie de Hall getting 140 is some butchering job there. Wouldn't be for me. Nothing towards the head of the market really inspires me. I've talked about Hot Fuzz a couple of times. I think his price is now about where it should have been. I'm not necessarily convinced he should be any shorter than he is, but he actually probably got close to East India Doc than any other horse. Won on the flat recently, beating Marble Sands. I think he would have wanted the ground a bit softer. Ideally, so he would be interesting. And the other one I backed at 50-1 is Solar Drive. Now, I just thought he was one of the more interesting ones at a massive price. He was progressing quite nicely over hurdles. He won a Balin Robe despite not jumping well and had Action Plan back in third that day. Then tried to give him £6 at Punchestown and will be £3 better off of him. Had Slurricane back in third. So he's kind of a horse that ties a lot of form lines together, Slurricane. So he's got the form to put him in the picture. He then went to the Scottish Triumph after a break of about 109 days. Tried to make all, got racing quite early there and set it up for St Pancras, who closed late and is now rated 130. He there goes off a mark 124. He hasn't got fashionable connections, so I think it's going to be a big price. But he's a really slick jumper, probably likely to go forward, handles any ground, was progressive on the flat, albeit at a low level. And you see some big price winners pop up with this. You see plenty placed at decent prices. And I think he's the type that will go well and probably outrun his odds.
Okay, so a couple of big prices for Dan, although he seemingly backed half the field.
Yeah, also, did Dan
good to have one side.
Before Hot Fuzz existed, did Dan know who Tom Dascombe was?
I was half familiar, but you could have lined up
I heard the
10 people, not a clue. No, I would have been like a firing squad lineup and not an absolute Scooby. But, you know, you live and you learn.
I do agree with you to some extent, Dan, where at the top of the market here, there's a few horses who've got a lot of questions to answer. We don't have a really short price favourite for this race, so it could be a shock. Just to put people out of their misery, what are you drinking?
Well, I've seen a lot of people speculate that it's bath water. That's the next drink I've got lined up. This is currently a Cheltenham delicacy that people will know well. It's a Steady Rolling Man from Daya, a local Cheltenham brew. So I'm getting in touch.
Bath water.
Well, they've got a different can that's bath water, but I'll save that one for later.
Very good. A few other people in the comments. Stephen Bennett loves Stencil. The favourites have a terrible record in the race. Something you got to take into account. Dave Elmer likes Total Look. You like Total Look, don't you?
Well, he's just an obvious one, isn't he? Like he was incredibly eye-catching the last day. He's got a bit of course form in the bag as well. Cromwell's a jab hand with these handicap horses. He's not a brilliant price. He's not one you'd be rushing to back now in comparison to what you'd be rushing to back on Tuesday. But it's just one of those where sometimes something obvious is obvious, and he looks obvious.
There's a few people liking Wendrock. Pierce Kelly says Wendrock is 16s will cruise this if he doesn't end up in the Triumph. He won't run in the Triumph, but definitely run here. So if you're confident, far away. Kieran Clavin links me nicely into who you fancy, Jake, because he says Beyond Your Dreams is a handicap nap on at 20s, not quite your 25s. I love the fact you put that one in there.
You paid him to write this comment.
Kieran, you have 20 quid in your bank account in the next 5 minutes. 1, 2, 3. She's thrown in, hasn't jumped well all season, but a bit of headgear and she'll jump like a stag. Ruby Walsh absolutely loved Beyond Your Dreams, and although Ruby has ridden more Grade 1 horses than I think we've ridden bikes.
I haven't ridden any bikes.
He hasn't ridden any. I don't know where I'm going now. But the one thing that filled me with most confidence about Beyond Your Dreams is the fact that Jake Price fancied her still at 10 to 1. I thought that was quite short. Do you still fancy her now? She's like 7 to 1, 6 to 1.
Sorry, very quickly before I can answer your question, I've just had a text from Tom Bull saying, "I'm sorry for not being there. I've seen a few comments asking where I am."
So good.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, obviously, like when I was listening to your podcast the other day on LTR, you were going quite negative about Beyond Your Dreams, really, weren't you? You didn't seem too keen on her anymore.
No, I felt that I think she's still got a good chance, but my reasoning is I think Mark Walsh will ride the other Joseph O'Brien, JP McManus horse and Put Your Hands Together. And I think if he does that and he picks him, then they'll flip-flop in the market. So I think that you still might get a nice price about Beyond Your Dreams still on the day. Like I wouldn't be taking 6 to 1, 7 to 1. Look, if Mark Walsh is on, Beyond Your Dreams could go off favourite. I'm not denying that, but I'm not convinced he will, because the one run that Put Your Hands Together had in open company against older horses, I just thought Mark Walsh that day tried to do everything to get that horse beat, and he was successful. It was closer to Cheltenham. I'm just not sure he gets off him.
It was a good horse to beat him as well.
Trained by a good man.
A very good trainer.
Saves Christmas quite often.
Yeah. No, interesting. Josh Davies says 0 out of 10 winners in this race have ran at Cheltenham previously. Negative for a few close to the top of the market. It's true. You've got to take these trends into account. But going back to you, Jake, you liked Beyond Your Dreams at 10 to 1. She's coming in a little bit. If she wasn't fancy prices before, me and Andrew would be sat here going, I tell you what, Jake is on another one here. He's picked the right horse. But do you honestly believe that Mark Walsh is going to ride? And do you so my thinking is I think she was a good price, say above 16 to 1, but now she's getting to a price where I couldn't back her if I hadn't backed her before.
Yeah, well, I think the main thinking of me landing on her in the first place was because the Frank Knight Juvenile Hurdle, or whatever it's called, Spring Juvenile Hurdle, isn't it, at the DRF, that has been really overrated in my opinion. You know, Willie Zahul off 140, the mare's off 136. Like, I think that's just very high marks. Like Wendrock as well. I think he's been particularly hard done by, because he finished out the back of the TV in the end that day. Got beaten, what was it, 14 lengths? Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I actually think that he has had a negative. What Jazzy Matty winning the Boodles a couple of years ago has had a negative impact on him, because I think they think he is Jazzy Matty.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. The weird thing about him though is he's the complete opposite of Jazzy Matty in the sense that he is a very small, flat-bred horse. Like he is. When you saw him going around the parade ring at the DRF, like you would think he's a filly. Like he was really, really small. So that would be a negative compared to obviously a Jazzy Matty, who was a big chaser for the future. But yeah, I just think he's been really hard done by. He would have been top of my list probably beforehand. Beyond Your Dreams, though, she comes in with this Irish form that's very underrated and could be well ahead of her mark. Like she went up, was it £6 from her Irish mark still, but she's off 1-2-3. I think that is really good. She had the 3 quick spins as well. Like, you know, she ran 3 times within a month to get her mark. Then they've just put her away completely. Now, what I hope has happened during that time is that they've done a hell of a load of schooling with her, because she could not jump for toffee. And that will be her undoing.
And hurdles every day since.
Literally, yeah. And they have to have done that, and I'm sure they will have done that, because this is the race, this is the target. Will Mark Walsh ride? I don't know. He'll be on, as you said, either her or Put Your Hands Together. I'll probably end up backing Put Your Hands Together if he is on, just to have like a bit of money on both, to be honest, because I do like the chances of both horses. I think they've been plotted up. Total Look, as you said, he is the obvious one. He is the one that I would have been on had he been a decent price for a lot longer than he was, but he just got overbet straight away. He's now probably around the type of price that you'd expect him to be had he stayed, you know, if he stayed 16 to 1 for a couple of weeks, went, you know, back down to 12, back down to 10s, he'd probably now be around the same sort of, you know, such type of trajectory as Beyond Your Dreams. But yeah, it's between those 3 for me, and I'm happy with Beyond Your Dreams. I think that 10 to 1 was a good price at the time, and I'm hoping she'll go off a lot shorter than that, but we'll have to wait and see.
You've convinced me. I'm back on the Beyond Your Dreams train. He will win the Boodles. I'm convinced. Dom Easton in the comments says that Beyond Your Dream wins, so he agrees with you, Jake. Chris says, I cannot be backing Beyond Your Dreams in a single bet, but I can alongside the rest of the fads on day one. So that means that Chris thinks she is just as good of a chance as Kopek de Board, and not reading but he thinks that he's just as good of a chance as all the short price favourites on the first day. Definitely not the fact that he wants to get a bit of value by backing her with some short horses. But the final handicap on day one is the National Hunt Chase, and it wasn't a handicap this time last year. But in previous years, Jake, the one jockey you want to be on side, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, has been Patrick Mullins. Now, do we want to keep him on side, even taking into account that any jockey can ride in this race? It's not an amateur rider's race.
Yeah, I mean, some will obviously take it a negative that Patrick is on transmission. That I think they're being a bit snippy, to be honest. I think he's very good type of rider. Let's be honest. If it was an amateur's race, it'd be obviously the prime booking. Everyone would be all over him. He'd probably be into Fab. It would be a absolutely quids in. But look, he's ridden the horse before. He gave him a great ride at Cheltenham. You know the type of horse that transmission is. He's going to come from the back. He's going to be plodded around. Then he's going to make up his ground up the home straight. That's what he does every time he's won. Every time he's gone to Cheltenham. That's what he did when he was behind Haiti Claus. Now he's £4 better off. I think the closer we get to the festival, the more and more I actually fancy him. I think the ground's coming up perfect. I think he's going to stay all day. He's had the perfect prep going over hurdles in January, not affecting his mark and having an easy time of things when wasn't even beaten that far, was he? Let's be honest. He's had the same prep as previous Neil Mulholland horses in the race as well. He keeps on creeping down in price. I've seen a lot of 9-2 today. So yeah, I'm really liking transmission, and he'd probably be my handicap nap on day one.
Handicap nap on day one. Love that from you, Jake. Dan, do you agree?
I can see it. To be honest, this isn't a race I have a massively strong opinion on. I think looking at the way horses are jocked up, we're going to have quite a big field in this. Like even horses you probably wouldn't have looked at or considered like towards the bottom of the betting or already jocked up. So this actually might be one of the more competitive handicaps.
If there is a big field, how will that impact how the race is run?
Well, you traditionally think that would bring it more stamina into play and potentially hold up horses have more of an impact, particularly if they go hard in front, which when it was amateurs, you think that's more likely to happen, as it often does with the Kim Muir. Now it's professionals, maybe not so much. But yeah, to be honest, it's not a race I have a strong opinion on at the minute. I think it's one of these races where I will quite happily wait for the final fields and play closer to the time. So I won't waste your time because I know a certain someone loves a certain Rebecca Curtis trained horse to rival Jake's.
Well, I found out in the last hour that there is a certain song that's going to be sung on Monday night on Andrew's Twitter. For those that haven't seen the Midnight Tipper, you need to go over and follow Andrew, especially this week, because you get a rendition of usually a rogue Man United chant that's been flipped into a horse's name. We had Adnan Januzaj in the past.
Yeah,
Anderson. But
a couple of Villa ones this year.
A couple of Villa ones. Haiti Galore is going to follow that suit.
Yeah, to Leon Bailey.
Haiti Galore. Why is Haiti Galore going to win?
He's got an incredibly likable profile. He's a likable horse. He's progressed all season. Second at Chepstow, where if he hadn't made a mess of the last, he would have won, beating just with Destroyer Evidence. Then went and won a forerunner race around Aintree. Not much you could take from that, to be honest, other than the fact he jumped well. Kind of the other three weren't a whole pile, and then beat Transmission at the December meeting. Then was given a little bit of time. Reappeared with a really nice third in a 3-mile handicap hurdle at Newbury, which I thought was a perfectly acceptable run. I suppose the one thing that's a small disappointment to me, and nothing against who is going to ride it, which will be Ben Jones, but I wouldn't mind a strain to Resplendent Grey in the next day or two. Because to be honest, if I had the option between Ben Jones and Sean Bowen, I would pick Sean Bowen. But that's because he's champion jockey to be. I believe, obviously, he's going to ride Resplendent Grey. Ben Jones will be on H. Galore. He's ridden the horse plenty of times before. He's won on it before, so it's no issue to me. The thing that we were doing a live stream for our members only an hour and a half ago, and the thing that blew my mind was I asked you whether you'd prefer Patrick Mullins on transmission or James Bowen, who should be riding the horse if he wasn't suspended. And you said Patrick Mullins. And it's just a load of bull. Like, do I want an amateur who rides in 15 chases a year, or do I want a man who's 6th, 5th in the Jockeys Championship in England?
I completely appreciate that the race has changed shape and it's now a handicap, but Patrick Mullins has won this race on multiple occasions, and I think that has to come into it a little bit.
A blind man could have won on Stackler. You're making it out as if he's done.
What about Gavard?
Yeah, well done him. Just because there was a faller at 2 out.
Don't bring up that race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wins because there was a faller at 2 out. Wins on Stackler that a blind man could have won on. Like, every time that he's had a horse that possibly required some riding, the likes of carefully selected Embassy Gardens, absolutely shagged.
He's ridden Transmission before. He's won on Transmission.
I'm not saying
if this was
I agree with Jake. If this was an amateur jockey's race, he'd be the prime booking. I don't disagree with that. But you saying you prefer him over James Bowen is just ludicrous.
I have to kind of agree with Andrew there. I would much
rather. I don't like it, but I agree.
I'm going to stick my chest out and say I prefer Patrick Mullins. I don't care what he's got to say. Right.
You have 2 nights of preview nights. You've been slating Patrick.
No, I haven't. Transmission for me, the lads have made the case. I just think that he's going to love Cheltenham, and I think this race will completely suit him. It's a very interesting race now. It's a handicap, where you can have a slightly less classy winner. It's not going to be a 6-runner race where effectively a Grade 1 3-mile novice chaser turns up and they crawl for the first mile, and the proper horse goes and wins in the last 2 miles. So for me, I think it'll be Transmission. I just think he's going to love the hill, and I think he's probably well handicapped in comparison to Haiti Galores, who you fancy. Yep. Right, now we're moving on to day 1 naps. We are going to have to rattle through this quickly. If not, we're going to still be here at midnight. But I want day 1 naps, and this can be in any race on the first day, not just the handicaps. Where is your first nap coming from, Jake? Price?
Naps is Transmission. And then if Lottie Mouth doesn't go to the mares, it will be Jade DeGrugy, because I just think she is mustard.
There we go. Dan overall?
Broadway Boy. I'm back on.
Broadway Boy is a nap. Andrew Blair White.
Haiti Galore.
And my nap on the first day is going to be... can I have both Put Your Hands Together and Beyond Your Dreams? I can't, can I? I've got to pick one. Purely for this, purely because Jake Price has convinced me Beyond Your Dreams will be my nap on the first day. Right. Now,
we're going to have a hell of a first day.
It could be a hell of a first day.
It won't be.
You can dream.
People still replying in their comments saying, "Where is Tom Bull?" Tom Bull is sat at home, absolutely fine, watching this. He said he's ill. He's not. He just couldn't be bothered. I reckon that's what it was. And as he's not here to defend himself, I'm going to go with that narrative all night. And tomorrow when I go into work, he's going to lynch me. But that's what happens when you don't turn up on the big preview night. Right, moving on to the Wednesday. The first handicap is the Coral Cup Handicap Hurdle. And at this stage, we'd have seen the New Line go and win the Turners, and we'd have seen Dancing City overturn Ballyburn in the 3-mile novice chase. So I'll be going into this race looking for a third winner of the day, obviously, because I'm just going to go through the card.
Where's Better Days Ahead finished?
Better Days Ahead.
Say, what's going on here?
We'll finish a very respectable second to Dancing City, slightly classier,
right, okay.
Of a similar mould. And I'll be looking for my third winner, and I'm going to be backing Comfort Zone because he was a very classy juvenile. Joseph O'Brien has got a really good record at producing horses a long way out from the festival, especially horses that haven't won. I'm sure everyone saw the Race Hour podcast. They made a great case on there saying that Joseph O'Brien horses that don't win the last year turn to Cheltenham in handicaps, and they've got a massive chance. I personally believe that because he's got such a good flat operation, that he's in a privileged position that he can take his time with the jumps horses. He probably has less than 30 jumps horses in his yard. Yeah. And as a result, he can be really selective with where they run and where they want to and how they want to campaign them. And I think that Comfort Zone screams well handicapped in the Coral Cup. Dan Overall has been nodding his head, and Dan's going to make the case as to why Comfort Zone is going to win the Coral Cup. Dan.
Yep, put him up on the preview a week ago at 20-1, and he's shortened now that Cupek Demi hasn't been confirmed for the race, as was expected. I'm getting more confident as we get closer, to be honest. So you made a lot of the case. Very classy juvenile, won at the course or on the new course there in a grade 2, won it well. Very good handicap hurdle form and intermediate trips in races that have worked out well. He was third at Galway behind the Wall Park with Beacon Edge in fourth. He went on to win the West Yorkshire Hurdle, the 5th and 6th one. Shortly after that, won a big handicap on the flat. Saw him at Leopardstown at Christmas over 2.5 miles, where didn't necessarily get the run of the race, but still shaped very well. Goes well fresh, so that's not a problem. The drying ground is absolutely fine. He's that good blend of unexposed still, but plenty of experience, which you need to be in a Coral Cup. 137 is well within reach. Yeah, absolutely think he could still go off a lot shorter than his current price.
Well, lads, as we know, the Coral Cup is such an easy race to predict. Me and Dan have made a great case at Comfort Zone there. Do we need to chat about who you both fancy, or should we just skip this
clearly you've got it by the nads. But at the same stage, Dan told me I actually had 50 minutes when I was on this show a week before Christmas time of Dan filling me with "Be Aware" propaganda. Well back for the race. He apparently doing everything right at home, and yet here he is. Dan's deserting him in his.
Well, he didn't do everything right on that Gallops day, apparently, because he bolt clear of all the others. And just took off.
He was dropped in with 4 of them, the New Lion, Grey Dawning, and there was one more.
There was.
Not sure the one more. Anyway, dropped in suddenly after 3 furlongs going to crawl. This thing just went, I'm not staying here. Whoosh. And within 10 strides, he was 25 lengths clear. It was very impressive.
He is arguably.
He is a nutcase.
You know, I'm fully aware that he's a horse that hasn't done it for me, but even in genuine terms, like, he is such a terrible price for this race. And I would say the same with the Changing Man for the Ultima and those types of horses. Like, they are perennial losers, and yet, like, it's just because he's trained by Skelton that he's the price he is. Like, he's a price that you can't even back him each way.
No, I agree.
We had a good set too about the Changing Man and Be Aware on that show, and we've come to the conclusion we don't like either of them in the end. Great.
I wasn't expecting the 2 of them to be turning up as 5-1 fabs for. Coral Cup, I think sometimes can suit a slightly classier horse. Maybe who's been running in great.
Which is why Sandor Cleggan's going to go and win the Coral Cup.
He will come forward, and I will stand at the 4th place post, clapping him in, as I have done many a time. and they will look at me, and they'll nod their heads. And
see you next year.
We'll go again. It'll be ridden a stone cold, and look, it'll try to pick up pieces.
Who's going to win?
I thought Farron Glory potentially had more. Well, he had a similar-ish kind of profile in terms of he ran in the Boyne Hurdle last time out. He was 3rd in that. I thought that was relatively eye-catching. Didn't like him as a novice chaser whatsoever, but his novice hurdle for him last year, he is good. He was a grade 1 winner. And he's the type of horse, it's a curious race that might suit him. He's got a bit of ability, this lad. And even though he's 147, I think he's got a fair chance.
So Farron Glory for Andrew there. Jake, who do you fancy?
Yeah, I'm all aboard the Comfort Zone train. Definitely like him. A couple of others I'll mention because there's no point going over the case again. Super Sunday would very much interest me here. Obviously, he's a half brother, or was it full brother, to the old Super Sunday who actually won the Coral Cup.
Yeah, surely you can't be running Super Sunday as a 15-year-old.
Showing plenty of zest.
Well, that's the problem. He showed too much zest this one. So hopefully, he can settle down a little bit. I would say he'd have a good chance. The bit of news that kind of came out this morning, we don't know how concrete it is, but JJ Sudden did say on Nick Luck that Carafon might be going here. That would actually be really annoying because I'd fancy him quite strongly for the Martin Pipe. But if he did come here, I guess I'd have to give him a bit of a view. But yeah, it would be between those 3 for me.
Interesting Carafon then for Jake. I personally feel that Connections feel he's just not as good as they think with Carafon, so just something to take note of. The cross-country chase then comes next, and again, wasn't a handicap last year, but it is now. Dan, quickly, Stumptown 157, yes or no?
No, I think that's a harsh mark. I think it'll be hard to give a lot of weight away to some of the others. Bustleton has been a bit of a fancy now for a few weeks. His price has collapsed since I put him up on the show, so happy with that position. As the gride drowns out, I'd say Galvin becomes the danger. I think he still retains enough of his old class to suggest he would be a big player in this race. But Busselton, for me, I think he's been campaigned perfectly for it. I expect the headgear to go back on. Last 2 wins came when headgear was reapplied, having been off for a couple of runs. I see no reason to abandon Busselton.
Joseph O'Brien might be champion trainer at the Cheltenham Festival.
I have been trying to get a bet on it, to be honest. Without Willie Mullins, Joseph O'Brien, he has got some tremendous handicappers.
He's got a serious team of handicappers. And I wonder what price he would be without Willie Mullins in a market like that. How many festival winners he's going to have? I kind of agree with you. I think Stumptown's got an interest. Sorry, not Stumptown. Busselton's got an interesting chance. Galvin for me, Galvin for you. Jake, Galvin?
Yep. As long as it dries out as much as we think it's going to. I think the last update I saw was still it was soft, heavy in places, but obviously that's just going to keep drying and drying. So yeah, if it keeps on drying, Galvin would be the one. But obviously I've had backed Busselton alongside Dan when he put it up back along. So yeah, I'm very happy with that position. But yeah, Galvin would be the one for me.
Aaron asks, will the ground on the cross-country course dry quick enough for Galvin? Surely it still goes off soft for that course. No, can't have Galvin. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too... If it was soft ground, I wouldn't be enormously against him. I think it's just if it turns more to the extremes of soft. Like, I wouldn't want the current reading with heavy in places. But
the reading's gotten better anyway. It's now good to soft in places on the cross country, and they can't
water
it.
There's no rain forecast, so I don't see how. I don't think they'll water the cross country course because they've obviously done that before, and then they had to abandon the race last year. So they're going to be very coy with that. I just think that there's no way that it will have any sort of genuine, soft, borderline heavy in the description. If that's the case, Galvin will be fine.
Cheltenham Master says, have your max bet on Will the Wise people for Tempt on Thursday. We're not on Thursday, Cheltenham Master. I don't know why you're saying that. So the day 2 naps can be in graded races as well. Jake Price, you're going to take it away.
What about the Grand Annual?
No love for the Grand Annual.
No love for the Grand Annual. We have forgotten the Grand Annual. I'm coming around to the fact that Unexpected Party could simply just be a bit too good, couldn't he, Jake?
Yeah, I can see that. I have nothing against him. It's actually a race that I lacked a bit of inspiration for, to be honest. It's quite a tricky little contest, isn't it? Especially as we don't know how many of these Class E horses are going to turn up. It looks like JPL1's going to go. Touching Me Not, I haven't heard anything if he is or isn't. One that I thought that was a massive price that I did quickly run past Dan last night and didn't get the biggest seal of approval is Master Tour. He's 40-1. If you went to back to the beginning of the season, he was bolting up at Ascot. Okay, he's got to prove that he likes Cheltenham, but he's back down to 147 after 2 runs. He managed to drop 4 pounds in 2 runs, where he's just shown absolutely nothing in terms of he's not even been put into the race. So I thought that he was quite interesting, but obviously Venetia Williams' form isn't that inspiring. Liberty Hunter, if he turns up here, I think that would have just an outstanding chance. But yeah, it's a race to wait for me just for a second, just to see who actually is in the final field.
I thought Nell's son also had a big chance at a big price for the Northern trainers. Who do you fancy?
Well, I'm just waiting to hear how Dan pronounces the Paul Nolan lurker at the bottom of the weights.
Ah, the good old red pen. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
You'll never be catch me say that name out loud ever again. I had to do it on the Nick Luck podcast with Josh, and I knew I butchered it yet again. I had my head in my hands the entire time.
What on earth is that?
I love how you got in the red pen twice, though, on Nick Luck's podcast.
And only a select few knew what I was on about.
The game
me and Andrew.
You're bad people.
Play to my audience.
Dan, who do you fancy here?
Liberty Hunter, if he runs, I think has got an outstanding chance and would be one of the stronger fancies. I think now that JPL1 is running, the fact that Liberty Hunter now won't be top weight, I think is massive for them probably going this way. I think he'll get £5 off JPL1 despite stuffing him last time in the game spirit. I know he was second in the race last year, reopposed Unexpected Party on worse terms, but he came into last year as a novice, having not run since the 1st of January, and novices generally don't go well in the Grand Annual. Still ran a stormer of a race, has improved every single start since. So now coming back, returning horses go very well in the Grand Annual. I think Liberty Hunter would be a strong fancy.
Compelling case, 2 votes for Liberty Hunter. But you're going to take them on with a trainer who... have you ever Have you ever backed a Paul Nolan horse before?
No, I haven't actually. No, I won't. No disagreements from the two lads because they hopped into the parade ring with me after the Dublin Racing Festival when this horse won. They're not even Paul Nolan fans, for fuck's sake. But anyway, this horse won well. He's gone up in the weight. They're humming and hawing between this race and the plate. I give him no chance in the plate. I give him every chance in the Grand Annual. And I'm going to save your next question because if he runs in the Grand Annual, it'll be my Napa Day 2.
Your Napa of Day 2. Dan, your Napa Day 2, please.
Liberty Hunter.
Jake Price.
I'm going to go for Better Days Ahead. Just to piss off Andrew.
Jesus.
I genuinely told the whole of Middlesbrough 2 nights ago this horse has absolutely zero chance.
And there are 50 people living in Middlesbrough.
Not many. Population's boomed.
I would have comfort zone each way in the Carmel Cup. A very interesting comment here. Matthew Feeney says, "Old boy American Mike," and Sean Hetherington says, "American Mike on good ground." Now I've got a funny story about American Mike. I'll be very quick. I loved him as a young horse. I told everyone on the podcast he was the next coming, and I remember he turned up to, it was at the Navan Novices Hurdle.
Yeah,
and I was in work. And I was that confident, I started playing the American Grand National in front of, sorry, not the Grand National, the American National Anthem in front of everyone in the office.
Didn't you have like a toy flag?
I had a toy American flag and I was waving it. And he jumped, I think, 2 out, and you thought, this is brilliant, wonderful times, we're going to go away and win. And he got stuffed, and that was a real low moment. So American Mike for me hasn't been my best friend since. But if Sean and Matthew, if you fancy backing him, I wish you the very best of luck. Moving on to the third day, the Thursday, and the first handicap again isn't a handicap that we've had before. It has been a handicap before, but it hasn't been a handicap in the last couple of years, and that is the Jack Richards Novices Limited Handicap Chase, a 2.5 mile novice handicap chase. What's interesting here is the race that we thought this was going to be was a 0 to 145. It's open at the top, which means any horse can run in it as long as it qualifies. But that does put a slightly different complexion on the race, because before we had A Plus Tard winning this race before going on to win a Gold Cup, it was an absolute farce how a horse that good can go and win a race that's 0 to 145. This is going to be slightly more interesting because we've got horses maybe slightly classier at the top of the weights. And they're above 145, and I'm not sure how that will impact those at the bottom. But the Jack Richards Novice Handicap Chase, is there one standout for you, Dan?
No, I think this race is incredibly difficult, to be honest. It's not one I have a strong opinion on. I'll wait to the final fields. The one that appeals most at the current prices will be Jordan's. Obviously, maybe second string for Joseph. Nürburgring's jumping just concerns me in a race of this nature. No doubt he's well handicapped. That would be the caveat. Jordan's has plenty of experience in France, second to Impere Pass last time out. But it's a race that will probably hold up very well. So I'll wait till close to the time to final decks before making a bet.
You think Jordan's got a chance?
Yeah, I'd be slightly concerned about his jumping. It's a bit scruffy. The same with Nürburgring. You obviously have to have that kind of caveat about the fact that he looks like he's resented fences in his 3 starts. That being said, a change of tactics can sometimes perk these horses up. He looks to be screamingly well handicapped. He's a horse I probably will back on the day. Haven't backed a horse in the race thus far, but he'd be the main one.
Jake Price?
There's a horse in here that I actually mentioned to both Andrew and Dan about a month ago that I thought could be quite sneaky, and that's Asian Master. The problem that obviously the big elephant in the room, literally, is his rider, and the fact that he is 7 foot tall. The big problem here is going to be if he is going to ride, he claimed £7, so therefore he can't do the weight that he is currently on at 11.2, and then he would also not be able to claim the 7. So if they can get an actual professional rider on, say Paul was on, I'd be absolutely all over him, because his 2 starts over fences this season, 3rd behind Madra, 3rd behind Mr. Gift, steps up in trip for the first time in a while. And it's also the reason why I flagged him so long ago is because his 3rd run was in a hunter's chase, and that's how he qualifies for this race as the 3rd run that he needed. So he's basically only had 2 starts, and he's in the handicap of 144. If he has a professional rider, I'll be all over him, but whether that happens or not, we'll see.
Yeah, a question from the crowd here, just because we're on these sort of streams, and Jake seems incredibly shrewd, because he is. That being said, load of cat we've just listened to here, because he's there about Asian Master, and yet he was blowing my ear off for the last month about Blizzard.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him, and I can bring up the message where he said, "What do you think about Blizzard of Oz?" And I told him he is a dog. And James said, "No, he's not a dog, not a dog, not a dog." He wasn't declared today. I got my justice. He didn't win a Gorham beginner's chase that even Dan could have won. And here we are. So it's not always. Asian Master does have a great chance, but Blizzard of Oz did never.
I fancy Nürburgring in the Jack Richards Novices Limited Handicap Chase. The Attempts is next, and I'm going to give the floor to the man next to me because he's going to talk the longest about this race.
There's not a whole pile to talk about, to be honest. But Feet of a Dancer, whether we want to say I'm biased or not biased, because I am biased, she's got an incredibly conceivable chance. She's ran in the right race at Christmas time. She ran a good race. She's a very similar, lightly raced mare that Mrs. Milner was when she finished third in the DRF 13 months ago. They had this race in mind, blah, blah, blah. She's got a very good chance. She's got a decent racing weight. The Wall Park's not in the race. She's still 10, 12 to 1. Like, I know she's getting well backed with some bookies, but I think it's a very, very backable price. In comparison to some of the others, like you're taking an awful lot of leap on Jericho de Repene personally. And it reminds me, Champagne Platinum that went off Fav the year Mrs. Milner won. I think Jericho de Repene could be in. And we've got a lightly raced, small mare, best twin fresh. What is not to like? Even you.
I do. I like her, yeah.
She has to have a chance.
I do. I've come round to her because the Wall Park isn't running. I'm pretty gutted about that. I thought he could have a massive chance. Jamie says, is Long Draw qualified for the Defence? He is qualified. When I spoke to Ollie Murphy on Monday, he basically said that it was just touch and go whether he'd get in. I think he got 127 or something like that, which wouldn't have got him in a lot of the recent renewals. So I think if he can get in, he'll run, and Ollie thinks he's got a decent chance. But one that could be interesting. So you like Feet of a Dancer. I probably like Feet of a Dancer at this stage. Jake, attempts?
Yeah, I put up and backed Will the Wise. I think he's got a great chance. I think obviously he'd want a bit of softer ground. A lot of people have worries about his run being so close to the Cheltenham Festival. I get that. It was in obviously very deep ground. The only thing I would say is they absolutely crawled around, so he only had to run up the straight. So it wouldn't be as off-putting for me as it is for some people. But yeah, I think off 1 through 4, he's got a great chance. I do like Jericho de Repene. I think that he's been plotted this half of the year, perhaps not the full year. But either way, I do think that his run the last year was very eye-catching. I could see him running very well. But yeah, obviously Feet of a Dancer, I do have to give her a credit. She does have a great profile, and I'll be having a couple quid on because I cannot deal with Andrew backing a winner that I've not had any.
I think one of the replies to your Jericho de Repene interest there, because Dan said everything in his face. Dan, talk to me, Jericho de Repene, what do you think?
I think he's been plotted. He started the season as an Arkle horse, and now he's running an attempt.
This half of the year.
How catastrophic does the season have to be for this to end up happening? He is firmly on. He disgraced himself on his penultimate start as well. He dropped out the back, rallied eye-catchingly. Then they're like, okay, we'll send him up to 3 miles. I cannot stand the horse at all.
I actually think that Jake's underestimating Nicky Henderson's capability of getting a horse handicapped. I think when he sent him out over fences at Sandown that time when he almost refused, I think in that moment he thought that the Potemps was always going to be the day.
And he arranged for that bee to sting him. He really is a genius at the game.
Yeah, he's a genius, yeah.
But God help us, I'm also on Feet of a Dancer. I think she's just glaringly obvious, isn't she? And her price is fair enough. I guess the one concern you'd have is stamina, but I think they'll have learned from Leopardstown. I imagine she'll be ridden pretty patiently to come with a run and hold on to her for as long as possible, but she just has a very solid each-way chance.
Okay, we've got to get through the next 2 days in 17 minutes, absolute tops. We've told the people an hour. We're going to give them an extra Brucey 15 minutes bonus. But that means that the plate we're going to have to rattle through. Jake, who do you fancy in the plate?
I have to say, I don't know if he runs, but if he does, then Jordan's has been left in here, and he's Joseph's only horse that he's left in here. If he ran here instead of the novice handicap, I'd be absolutely all over him. I know it's been a race where we've had course and distance winners, English winners over the last 6 seasons. But just because it's a winning trend doesn't mean it's going to continue. We saw that with the Mares Novice, where Willie won it for the first 6-7 renewals, and then he hasn't won it since. I just think that Jourdain's would be a real big bet in here, because I just think it's so much less competitive than the Novice Handicap, which looks really strong at the moment. So he would be very much interesting to me. Away from that, if he didn't run, then Gemerand has got an obvious chance on that course and distance angle, and then also Il Ridotto as well. I backed him for the November race. Maybe he's done all his running for this season, but he loves this course and distance, will love the drying ground, has come down a few pounds. So yeah, a couple on my radar there, but Jourdain's would be the one if he does run.
In the comments, Dale says Grandeur Dam. I think he's got a big chance at big price as well. Dan, who do you fancy in the plate?
Gemerand for me, fancied him for a while. Only concern at this stage would maybe that Venetia's form is starting to tail off, and we know how she can be quite a streaky trainer. So I'd like to see some signs of a revival sooner rather than later. But look, his course and distance form broke my heart beating Madara in the December Gold Cup. Perfectly valid excuses for his last 2 runs. Ran well at the festival last year. Normally goes prominent, which is key for this race. I think he has everything in the locker to run a big race.
Jourdain's, Gemerand.
Don't have a clue.
Don't have a clue. Sometimes you just have to say it.
The place looks a minefield.
It does look a minefield.
It does, yeah.
The Kim Muir, not so much a minefield?
No, well, it is, but I actually have a selection in the Kim Muir. I've talked to Dan a little bit about Yeah Man, who was possibly one of the funnier unseats of the year when he departed halfway in the Grand National Trial at Haydock, and Sean Flanagan sprung himself around 10 feet off the horse. I think he's got a very good chance of 144. There's other horses in there being well talked up. Can completely understand that, but this horse has got a bit of quality about him. He's got plenty of big field handicap form. 3 mile one around Cheltenham is well up his street. And I know it's been an absolute Joseph O'Brien nosh fest the last 59 minutes and 50 seconds. But if we're actually backing something without Willie Mullins to be champion trainer, I think the bet's Gavin Cromwell. It always tends to be. He's got heaps of good chances, especially in the handicaps, and Yeah Man would be one of them.
Jake Price, Yeah Man, is he going to be a winner in the Kim Muir?
That was one of your bets.
Yeah. What a link.
Superb.
This is why we need Tom Bull.
I can't believe it. He got to an hour. Had to say that.
He'd have found Splendiferous to fit in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And used it beautifully. Me, not so much. Yeah Man, a Yeah Man in the Kim Muir.
I backed him and put him up. I'll be on him. I think he's got a good chance. The one here, the main one for me, really, really hoping he runs is Samajest. He's pretty much, JP this week doing his confirmations, is pretty much straight batted where every single horse is going to go other than Samajest. What I'll take very big hope in, and I know I'm kind of reaching here, is he got put into the National Hunt Chase with 10 minutes left to go. He was in this race, the Kim Muir, from the off, like as soon as Willie did his decks, his confirmations this morning. So I'm hoping that he'll come here. And obviously, because Derek O'Connor's on Johnny Who, potentially we're going to get Patrick on. That would be absolutely optimum right now. But obviously, he still does have the National Hunt Chase option. So we'll find out what happens. But yeah, Samajest would be my nap of the day if he runs.
Samajest. Dan, overall, Kim Muir?
Yeah Man for me as well. Another one I put up on the series. No reason to abandon. Crying out like he's got another big staying handicap chasing him. Obviously, what lines up in opposition? Johnny Who is now been the talking horse for the race. It doesn't do anything for me, really. He seems to me very good at the start of the season, then just very average in the following months. Seems to be the trend with him, so wouldn't be one I'd fancy. I think Midnight Alfred is the one who's pretty solid in the race, but I think Yeah Man would still be a pretty solid option at the prices.
I like Midnight Alfred as well, but the Thursday could be horrible in 1-3-1s after if Feet of a Dancer and Yeah Man were to win. You two would be unbearable. But
oh yes,
you're lucky that I'm in London. So.
Oh, that's true.
Oh no, we'd be going there anyway. Actually up.
The naps on day 3.
Feet of a Dancer and Nolan is the answer.
Dan overall.
Gemerand in the plate.
Jake Bryce.
6.5 in the Mares Novice.
And before I give my nap on the first day, you can win 2 club tickets for the Tuesday at the Cheltenham Festival. You simply have to comment on this video where is Tom Bull? And you get a bonus answer for calling him a spoofer.
Or Sick Note Bull.
Or Sick Note Bull. Where is Sick Note Tom Bull? And you get 3 votes or 3 entries into the competition to win tickets instead of 1 if you just comment where is Tom Bull. Yes, so that's how you can win those tickets. But my nap is Nürburgring in the first, not in the first, but in the Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase, the first handicap on the 3rd day. Right, moving on to the Friday. There's 2 more handicaps we've got to get through. The first one is the County Hurdle, and it seems from today that sorry, everyone's commenting Sick Note and he's a speaker. Absolutely brilliant.
He's there. Look at this with the glummest face you can ever imagine right now.
He's on his way to. He only lives about a mile away. You live with him, and he will definitely go on his way. Dom Easton says, "Where is JP McShaftus?" I don't know what that means. Josh Davies says, "Where is Sick Note Tom Bull? Where is Sick Note Tom Bull?" That honestly,
where is he?
Jake has got a mission of his job. He's got to go through all these comments and work out who's got 3 entries compared to 1. And
it's a spreadsheet jobby.
Exactly. and it all depends on if you've given Tom Bull stick tonight. And that is, in a world where we're all getting very refined and we have to be very professional, this is the type of stuff that makes us. We're still there. The game is still alive, and that's
like Millwall
fan.
The Friday comes next, and the County Hurdle is the first handicap on the Friday after the Triumph Hurdle. And at the moment, it looks like Copet de Me might run here. Interestingly, today, I don't know how this race is going to work, because if Copet de Me runs here over the Martin Pipe, he's going to be a short price favourite. But Willie seemingly has got 55 entries in the race. So how are we looking at the County Hurdle, Jake?
You tell me. I mean, what I'm looking at is a long list of WP Mullins. That is all I can see right now. I mean, yeah, as you said, it is an absolute minefield of a race right now, because he's got so many horses in here who, if they weren't all running against each other, you'd really fancy them. The Cargies, like if she ran in here, I'd be all over her normally. Absurd has got a great chance. Ethical Diamond's got a good chance. Carnique, and then obviously you've got Copet de Me, who's just this unknown quantity who could be that state man type horse. So yeah, it's one of those I'm definitely going to be waiting to the day, see who Paul Townend's on as well. Obviously that will get over that very, very, very quickly considering what happened last year. But yeah, it's one of those races where I'm going to wait and see what happens. The one at a massive price that I just thought I'd mention is Ndawi. He's got that juvenile form as well for Gordon Elliott. Hasn't been seen for a long time, obviously, since going to the Cesarewitch, where he ended up finishing last. I think he had a bit of an issue that day. So he'd be one that's on my radar for handicaps, potentially going forward. Maybe not this one, but yeah, it is a minefield of a race right now.
Baggy Chiefs trying to get in Tom's good book, saying gorgeous Tom over Sick Note Tom. I'm not a fan of that, Baggy. We need to be giving him plenty of stick. But Jake makes a good point. The race is almost impossible to look at right now, especially considering Copet de Me might run here, because we're just not sure who's going to run. I'd say if Paul Townend had it his way, there would be a County Hurdle run tomorrow at Clersutton, so he can pick which one goes and wins. It's difficult, isn't it?
Very difficult, yeah. I backed Ethical Diamond around a month ago for this race. It's not a slip I'll be throwing out, but it's a slip I'm lukewarm on. I must confess, the vibes don't seem to be brilliant in comparison to maybe some of the other horses for that yard in the race. I think Copet de Me will end up running here, and we might get on to why a little bit later, given that JP owns it.
Interesting. Dan, County Hurdle?
Yeah, not a Scooby. I just feel almost sorry for Dan Skelton, who's rocking up with Valgran thinking, actually quite warming on him. And then he's going to look at the battalion that Mullins is sending. They've all got about 15 pounds in hand. Generally, Willie Mullins could have the first 5 or 6 home here. It's that ridiculous, his hand. So, like Jake, sitting out until I know who's actually running.
I think that's probably what we're all going to do. The Flat Out podcast says, where is Chicago Bull? Now, for those that don't know this, if you watched racing TV about 3 months ago, Tom Bull wore an outrageous pair of trainers on the Friday Club. If LeBron James was wearing them the next day, you wouldn't have thought they were out of place.
On the Friday Club, they may have been a stretch.
And as a result, his nickname ever since has been Chicago Bull. So
very good.
Very good. Jack Nickel gets the nod for that tremendous nickname. And I think it's fair to say that Tom won't be wearing those trainers on the Friday Club again.
No, well, not only did he do that, but around 3 days later, he wore them at Kempton. And I think he did a
moonwalk.
A moonwalk of Michael Jackson.
Into the horse.
Like into the horse. Like he was doing the rap, and then he did it. And there was the horse that had won the last coming down the chute at Kempton, and he just walked into it.
I'm just surprised at the horse has seen these two like moon boots and hasn't seen them coming.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm taking the opportunity that Tom isn't on this podcast and I'm saying everything because I know that the next time I'm probably going to be on the Jump Show is going to be in a year's time. So I'm going to just get it out of the system now. Moving on to the last handicap and the last race we're going to preview individually, and it's the Martin Pipe, the final handicap on the Friday. The final race on the Friday. It's one of those races where you just don't want it to come around because it signals the end of the Cheltenham Festival. If you back the winner, you go out on a high. You could back 27 losers, but back the winner of the Martin Pipe, and it's been a brilliant festival. You could back 27 winners and don't back the winner of the Martin Pipe, and you feel like you're in the poorhouse. It's just one of those races. It's a make or break. And as a result, you try and find the winner. Jake Price, 6 months in advance, is writing which horse is going to go to the Martin Pipe, who's going to turn up there. And after 6 months of looking into every single horse, he comes down with the winner. And that is Jake Price.
Would who?
I
hope. Obviously, Kopek to me not turning up is a massive bonus. Well, potentially not turning up is a massive bonus. Obviously, we haven't had that confirmed yet, but it does seem like he's going county. So therefore, yeah, Wood Who is the one I put up in the series, 12-1. Now into 5-1, very, very short price. But look, she's got a great chance. Her form at the December meeting reads really well. She's won over the actual course and distance of this. Danny Gilligan's going to be on board. There is a lot to like about her. The other one I put up in the series is Carafon, and as I mentioned, if he runs here, I'd be really keen on him. I do think he is still a massive price. You can get him around 16-1, I think. I think that is quite a big price about the type of horse that he is. But clearly, we haven't had that confirmation, and there was a bit of a talk about Coral Cup today. So, yeah, Wood Who would be the one for me, as much to Andrew's dismay, as I just saw there.
Well, yeah, like it's lovely to have 12-1, but 5-1 is a terrible.
But you fancy one in here, don't you?
I do, yeah, and I do sense that if Kopek to me was to run in the County Hurdle, it leaves the JP one open for McLaury to run here. I've really gotten very keen on this horse in the last couple of days. Just looking back at the Dublin Racing Festival race that he won, he got to the front and just completely packed it in, like put his 2 ears in the air and went, I've done more than enough here. He's beaten Stormheart, Irish Panther, and Old Man Dingle. Batman Jirac, if he hadn't fell, would have been in the frame. He's got probably a decent enough chance in the Imperial Cup tomorrow. It's just one of those where you're thinking, this horse is just improving at a rate of knots. And it's always, you cannot get through a Cheltenham Festival week, I don't think, without Willie Mullins thinking bullish. And Emmett Mullins is standing around 3 yards behind him with a wry smile, knowing that he's got something that's just lurking. I think this is Emmett Mullins' best chance of the week by far. And now I will be backing McLaury. Whether he runs in a County Hurdle, whether he runs in a Martin Pipe, I'll be backing him no matter what.
Who would ride him, do you think?
That is a good question, and a question that I suspect it will be one of the conditionals that JP has been using. So it'll probably be
Aidan Kelly again, was he?
Aidan Kelly, Peter Smithers, one of those lads.
Yeah. That was the only thing I was thinking. And that applies to Kopek to me as well if he was to run, to a certain extent.
Yeah, there isn't a necessary obvious one. I suppose Kieran Callan will ride something for Willie, but JP's usually quite loyal to people that have ridden for him. And I just feel the fact that the likes of a Smithers or maybe an Aidan Kelly who's won this race before would probably get the first point rather than maybe somebody that's actually associated. Like the conditional in the yard is Connor Clark, who's a fair young rider. I'd be very surprised if he was to ride the horse.
And that's the thing with Wood Who. You know Danny Gilligan's going to ride her. Like you've probably got the best conditional in the race if you're a Woodhoo fan, regardless of which JB horse rocks up.
Just a question for Jake. Like I understand, as I say, I think if you've got double figures on Woodhoo, that's brilliant. But was it not just a completely false race the last day? Like we're looking at this form as if it's absolutely concrete. I think there's an awful lot of reasons to suggest, like the fact that obviously horses in behind are winning is great to give it a bit of robustness. But don't necessarily think she was the best horse on the day.
I mean, I think you've got to remember it was her first run in a year as well. Like she had a long absence to overcome. She went there fresh, obviously. Danny gave her a great ride. I'll give you that. I just think that the form. Okay, you can say it was falsely run, or that Joyeuse was unlucky, or that Joyeuse would perform better in the future, as she obviously has done. But the fact that Take No Chances and Royal Mulgaro also got on and boosted that form as well, I think that leads to me believing it is a very strong piece of form. And okay, she's up in the weights, but I think that she's got a cracking chance. I understand that you would now be snippy about the price, and if you hadn't got the double figures, then obviously you would be looking at her like, do I really want to get involved at around 5 to 1, 9 to 2? But I think that she ticks every single box, especially the course and distance win.
You have bowled a googly there, and JP has gone, where's the boundary? And just smacked.
Yes.
Same old.
Feels a little bit like the Big Westerner to me in terms of got a great chance, possibly a favourite's chance. Don't see an unexposed mare beating unexposed gelding. So
Fair enough. We are a minute away from possibly announcing the ticket winner. But one person who I would like to put in consideration is Chris, who says, where is sick note blagger, not blogger, Tom Bull? So that is my mind with regards to who should win the tickets. Right. Dan Overall has got one more race to preview, and that's going to be the Martin Pipe. Dan, who's going to win? Who's going to beat Woodhoo, and who's going to beat McLaury? Or are you siding with one of them?
So I think I'd be inclined at the minute as the safe option would be Woodhoo, but I think what will happen is Woodhoo and either McLaury or Kopek de Meet is going to make the market for everything else in the race. Like, they are going to dominate this market significantly, and it's going to make everything else a massive price by comparison. So if you're looking just for something each way, I imagine on the day, there'll be some fair horses with decent each way prices. And I think you'd be looking to the likes of an Electric Mason, the like of a No Questions Asked, who are currently around 33 to 1, novices who still have a bit more potential, those types of horses who could just be monstrous prices. But at the minute, I'd go with Woodhoo, but got to determine. Go on, which one of those were you avidly against?
I can make peace with a Gordon Elliott trained horse. Chris Gordon winning the last. Come on, Dan. We've had 75 minutes of no BS. And
Paul Webber won this race a few years ago.
Yeah. Well,
go on.
If we look back at that race, I don't want to mention what happened. But do you reckon Paul Webber would have won the race if every horse was completed?
Oh, there's a big ifs and buts, but I mean, shall we just bring up that race again? Let me just remind myself what happened. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a funny one. Well done, Paul.
Column of fire.
It was the fact that I was standing beside you and you actually rode the horse into the hurdle yourself.
Did you fall over as well?
Down the stairs.
I think I ran 2 out to the last quicker than him.
We nearly made a whole Cheltenham preview without mentioning Column of Fire.
Yeah.
We were so close.
So close.
Right. Day 4 naps, Andrew Blair.
Argento boy, Albert Bartlett.
Daniel, John Overall.
Lalamba, Triumph Hurdle.
JP, Jake Price.
If the yellow clay runs in the Albert Bartlett, clearly him. Assuming he won't, Woodhoo.
A lark in the morning for me in the county hurdle. Right, before we announce the winner of the ticket giveaway and we end the show, we do want to get a nap of the festival, one winner from all 3 of you, whether punters watching this, the faithful almost 400 we've reached live, which has been a tremendous number. Thank you so much for all the support on this video. If you did enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and do get your comments down below. And effectively, Tom Bull has been put in the mud tonight, and that is not a bad thing, because if you don't turn up for the big day, you don't deserve the credit for what you've done before. And the winner of any race at the Cheltenham Festival, but you have to give us a winner, is going to be...
I wouldn't want to be you at 2:48 on Thursday.
Why?
Because Feet of a Dancer would have just won.
Feet of the Dancer.
Rhythm is the dancer.
Dan overall, the best bet of the whole Cheltenham Festival.
Assuming he runs, which I think he will, Liberty Hunter in the Grand Annual to make up for last year.
So we've got Feet of a Dancer, we've got Liberty Hunter, and Jake Price is going to put up.
If he ran, assuming he won't, but if he ran in the Albert Bartlett, then the yellow clay would be the absolute nap of the meeting. Assuming he won't run, I will go with Transmission in the National Hunt Chase.
And mine will be Nürburgring in the Novice Handicap Chase. So they are the 4 best bets of the Cheltenham Festival for us. I would swap Nürburgring winning if Beyond Your Dreams was to go and win, but at the prices right now, I think Nürburgring is an app.
That's not the way naps work.
No, it is.
You can't just
Trade them in.
Oh no, that was the nap.
You're playing swaps with naps.
I hope this
is the best one.
The nap of the festival, Ben Knight has got it spot on. Tom Bull will never miss a handicap preview again. Thank you all so much for watching. The winner of the ticket giveaway is Jake Price. We've got to have a drum roll, please.
I'm going to pick a random comment here if I can find one. It's going to be... Hang on.
Oh.
There's so many here.
The tease.
Here we go.
Where is
Well done, Jason.
You have been tremendous value and well done. You'll be going to the Cheltenham Festival on the Tuesday to watch Constitution Hill possibly beat Brighter Days Ahead. Or you might go and watch Terra Firma win the Boodles, as Tom Bull thinks he might.
You can put those winnings on Western Zephyr.
Yeah.
I have a feeling every horse Bully's going to back will just be NR coughing in the morning now.
There we go. I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's been so much fun. Thank you, lads, for having us on. You've been, again, tremendous value all year. The Jump Show is one of those shows you just have to simply be watching at the moment. And if you're not watching it regularly, then you're behind. You don't have the edge. Jake does all the graphics immensely well. Dan has got immense insight. They both chuck up winners for fun. Shame about the other lad, but you can't have it all. I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. We'll see you next year for the Let's Talk Racing Jumps Show handicap preview, and I suspect there might be a different host.